Milner, or Susan Milner, also known as McCartney Green. All right, let's get to it. We are on chapter 29 of book number 1, A Healing in Jesus' Name. Shelley smiled as drops of water splattered on her face. Time to get up, sleepyhead, Eric said softly. She moaned. Let's just stay here, she suggested. Eric frowned. Those are not the words of a great competitor. Well, who says I'm a great competitor? She retorted. I say, and I am the master, Eric said dramatically, making Shelley giggle. So how do you feel? He asked, as he always did the morning of a tournament. Shelley closed and opened her eyes. Actually, I'm really nervous. Eric frowned. You've never been nervous before a tournament before, my love. What's up? Well, those were all different. They were all practice for this. Now, here I am at the real thing, and I feel sick. He sat next to her where she lay on her bed and gently patted her stomach. What are you afraid of? He asked. She thought a moment, trying to sort her feelings. Well, I'm not afraid of getting hurt. She paused. I think I'm afraid of failure. Okay, he said, taking her fear seriously. Go shower and come back, and we'll work on this. New scene. Eric sat with his back against the headboard, and Shelley sat in front of him on the bed. He rubbed her shoulders and back. Close your eyes, he said calmly. We're going to do a little prayer session, beginning with meditation to help calm your mind so you can hear what God is trying to say to you. Breathe in. Now out. Again. Lean your head forward. Breathe in. Now out. Again. Lean your head to the right. Breathe in. Now out. Again. And to the left. Breathe in. Now out. Again. Now, start at your feet and ankles. Relax them. We call upon the light and power of Jesus Christ. Shelley, see his light as a ball of warm light coming from his hand to the top of your head and moving slowly down your body. His light, his spirit, is relaxing you, healing you, comforting you, filling you with the peace that comes only from him, filling you with his love. He continued talking her through the spoken meditation and prayer until she was completely relaxed. Shelley, God is telling me that you are a mighty warrior, though you may not know it. He says you're stronger than you think, and your body will do what it's been trained to do. He wants you to get rid of fear of failure because win or lose, you have not failed. You've won a mighty battle, and all those that love you are proud of your accomplishments. Breathe in strength and peace and power. Breathe out nervousness, negativity, weakness. Again. The session went on for some time, and finally he had her go back and wake and energize each part of her body. When he was finished, he wrapped his arms around her. I wish that I could fight this battle for you, but like you've been telling me all year, this is something that you must do. So, I send you my power and love and protection this way. He squeezed her hard and then couldn't resist playing her game. May the force be with you. She smiled and sighed. Okay, dress now and come down to breakfast, sweetheart. He kissed her softly. I could try to make you feel mean the way I have before, but I don't think you'd fall for it. She laughed. Not this time. I'll be okay. Thanks. She came down dressed, her hair braided back, carrying her sports bag and her brow furrowed. They ate a light breakfast of fruit and toast and left for the arena. Upon arriving at the Rosewood Sports Arena, they were swamped by the press again. Shelley walked right past with no comment, and thankfully they seemed to respect her need to concentrate and moved on. Eric walked her around, getting her oriented, finally leaving her at the door of the women's locker room. There was plenty of security inside the locker room, and Shelley felt safe. Besides, Jason had it covered. No one was getting into this place with a gun hidden in their bag. She changed into the simple white uniform Eric had provided for her. Others had more elaborate uniforms, one black silk with a gold dragon imprinted on the left side, one bright yellow with black piping. Shelley's was plain white, because Eric wanted her to concentrate on the warrior within. It was relatively quiet inside the locker room, even though there were several other competitors there. There was definitely an air of anxiety. She looked around at some of the other women. Most of them were taller than her, and all were younger. She leaned back against the locker and breathed deeply. Eric's prayer earlier had relaxed her for a minute, But suddenly the anxiety came back full force. Hands shaking, she tried to put on her prized black belt. 3 times she started to wrap it around her waist, and 3 times she dropped it. Giving up, she held the belt in her hands and went to find her teacher. Approaching Eric, she held the belt out to him. Calm, strong, compassionate, he took the belt and wrapped it around her waist, tying it snugly. He took her trembling hands in his. "You're still nervous?" "I was okay, I thought. But in the locker room, there's such a heaviness." The nerves came back. "I hate this feeling," she complained. "Sweetheart, it's just a tournament, like any other tournament." She shook her head, eyes wide. "No, it's the tournament. It's what we've all been working so hard for all year. If I screw up, I let everyone down." She breathed in and blew out sharply several times, trying to calm down. "Ugh," she grunted and turned away, shaking her hands up and down as if she could shake away the nerves. Eric watched her walk away. Ricky and Justin joined him. "So, Dad, how's she doing? Is she ready?" Ricky asked. Eric sighed. "Nope. She has a pretty bad case of the jitters, and nothing I say seems to help." "Have you tried being stern?" Justin asked. "You know, like telling her to buck up and get over it." "Well, you know Shelley better than that," Eric replied. "You know how sensitive she is. If I act the least bit disappointed in her, it will only prove her point, that if she messes up, she lets us all down." "So what are we going to do?" Ricky asked. Eric shook his head. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's going to have to be drastic and fast." He sighed. "Father, give me the right words to help her," he prayed as he walked toward her. He went to her and swung her around to face him. "Baby, this tournament is so unimportant to life in general. If you'll just put it in perspective, then you'll see that there's no reason to be nervous." She looked up into his face with pitiful eyes. "I'm trying," she breathed. "But right now, I feel like I'm going to throw up." "Okay," he began. "Okay, let's look at this logically. What's the worst that could happen?" She thought a moment. "Well, I guess the worst thing would be that I get put out in the very first round." "Okay, then. Let's say that happens. Let's say you lose your first bout." "What then?" he asked. "What I mean is, does the world stop revolving? Do you die? Does life end?" "No," she said sharply, "but I'll wish it did. I'll probably throw myself off a bridge." He sighed, feeling frustrated. "Shelley, what can I do to convince you that there's more to life than the mart?" She shook her head. "Nothing. There's nothing you can do. I mean, it's the opportunity of a lifetime, and we've worked so hard for it. People would give anything for this kind of chance," she explained. "But, sweetie, when it's over, it's over. Life does not depend on a tournament. We are competitive, yes, and we put a lot into preparation for a competition, yes. But this tournament is no more important than those kids playing t-ball that we passed on the way here. After this event, there will still be things to do, things to look forward to." "Like what?" she snapped. "Name one thing." "Like," he hesitated. "See, even you can't think of anything." He grabbed her and pulled her close. The words came into his mind, the voice of God urging him to be honest. "Yes, I can. Things to look forward to, like planning our wedding." He shocked himself as well as her. She stood there blinking at him in amazement. He dived in, as Ricky would say, might as well swim around. Only difference was this was forever. "Shelley," he began, I know you want to be independent, and I promise I would try hard to never dominate or overshadow you. But I want you to be my wife and share my home with me. I want you to make it our home. You can get rid of everything and redo the house any way you like, or we can go back to Atlanta, whatever you want. Just say you'll marry me, because I love you, Shelley girl, with all my heart, and I can't even imagine life without you." She didn't speak for what seemed like an eternity, and when she did, what she said took him by surprise. "How could you?" she asked madly. "How could I what?" he asked innocently. "How could you ask me to marry you here, now, right before I'm supposed to fight in the biggest tournament of my life?" Eric had to bite his lip to keep from smiling as he watched the familiar fire return to her eyes. It worked. He had heard his father's voice, and instead of ignoring it like he had been all year, he acted on it, and it worked. The impromptu, carelessly worded proposal had helped her put the mart in perspective and made her fighting mad without hurting her feelings. She shoved him. Men, she snarled. I have waited all year, for you to propose to me, and you do it now? Now? She grunted and pushed him away. Waited a year, but I thought... She turned away sharply and headed toward Ricky. Ricky, she commanded, help me stretch. Yes, ma'am, he grinned. She walked past him to a mat. Ricky and Justin smiled at Eric as he approached slowly. Good job, Dad. You're a genius. Yeah, well, I had some help, he said as he pointed heavenward. What did you do? They asked. Eric smiled. I proposed. Proposed what? Ricky asked. I asked her to marry me, he said softly. They both grinned and slapped him on the back. Are you coming? Shelley snapped. Ricky saluted and hurried over to stretch her out. All three men looked up, however, as a message from one of Jason's men came over their headsets. JC +5 entering on aisle 18. Jason responded, You put Jerry and Wang on his butt and don't let him out of your sight. Eric smiled. He had him. It wouldn't be long now before he'd eliminate that problem completely. Jason leaned closer to the monitor screen. He had an odd feeling. Something wasn't quite right. His sharp eyes surveyed the action. James Crane stood poised and relaxed, gazing out over the arena as he spoke on his cell phone. 5 men surrounded him. Why would he spend so long in hiding and now show himself so boldly? It's as if he wants Eric to see him now. He must realize, Jason thought, that Eric had plans to bring him to some kind of justice, one way or another. Did he spend his time getting all his ducks in a row and now thinks he can't be touched? We expected him to show today, Jason thought, but covertly. He wants us to see him. Why? What is he thinking? He's a smart man, a brilliant businessman, shrewd, cold-hearted. No, there's something else here. Jason sighed and kept a close eye on the situation. He keyed his mic. No one makes a move toward these guys without my say. He thought twice before he said his next words, but went with his instincts. That includes you, Master Kino. He received no response from his friend. He expected none. New scene. What do you think, Tommy? James asked impatiently, speaking quietly into his phone. I think you, bro, are brilliant to think of this. You get to sit, relax, and watch Ms. Adams get her butt kicked. And I get to play you and lead everyone on a wild goose chase. I haven't had this much fun in a long time. So you need to chill and let me handle things. So far, I think they've bought the whole thing. Sit back, my very old brother. Watch the festivities and let me walk in your shoes. James smiled. I bet you'd like to do just that. Who would have known that with just a few changes you could look so much like me? Yeah, it's amazing what some facial implants and gaining 20 pounds can do. Didn't know I could ever be as ugly as you. James chuckled. Just remember, after today you go back to being number 2. James leaned his tired-looking old bones back in his chair and waited for the fun to begin. New scene. Eric silently watched the beautiful warrior who stood side by side with his son. They moved through their chi like the waves of the ocean, continuously moving, flowing, drawing back and surging forward, their power intense. He trained both of them. They'd been difficult yet wonderful students. Just as a child would learn to speak, they'd first mimicked his actions and then imitated and slowly learned to understand and find meaning in each movement. Eventually, they began putting sentences together, but quickly went way past being able to merely speak. They were gifted students. There was something inside them, forcing them far beyond the ordinary. Eric smiled with admiration. Shelley's eyes were closed, yet her balance was perfect. She guided herself from within. Her movements were powerful and intense, yet fluid and beautiful. She radiated with a golden light. Her movement slowed and ended just as the announcer began to speak. One by one, he called the instructors and their students to a line at the mid-floor, giving their stats as they came forward. Television cameras panned and network personnel chatted merrily for their unseen audience. Eric glanced at Shelley. She seemed undisturbed. They called his name and he left her side. She watched him go. She watched the crowd's response to him. She was proud to be his student. Shelley Adams from Atlanta, Georgia, 5 feet, 5 inches, 130 pounds, age 35. A murmur from the crowd. She arrived at Eric's side, and the announcer moved on. Eric smiled at her. Maybe she wouldn't be so calm if she knew what the TV personalities were more than likely talking about right now. Her age, and the fact that she'd only won one tournament throughout the year. They would also be talking about the assault before Christmas and about her fall from the bridge less than a month ago. A bookie listening to their report would probably give her odds at 50 to 1. Whoever had the guts or wisdom to bet on Shelley was going to make big money today. Eric scanned her opponents. Some were stretching, hopping, moving impatiently side to side, even shadowboxing as they waited for the announcer to finish speaking. Shelley used to pace, he thought, but no more. She was completely still. Her arms hung loosely by her side, her breath coming even and slow, a look of peace on her face. He was proud to be her teacher. Shelley Adams had learned well. He placed her odds significantly better. The students were ordered to the side, and the instructors came forward to draw a number printed on a poker chip. Eric drew and returned to their camp. "And here we go," Eric smiled. Justin nodded in anticipation. "I think the waiting for her turn to fight is the worst part for Shelley," he said. "Well, that won't be a problem this time," Eric answered as he handed Justin the chip he'd drawn. "We're first." Shelley looked up, surprised. "Well, I guess this is my lucky day." "Blessed," Eric corrected. He then gave her a quick win-one for the Gipper talk. Justin quickly recognized her opponent and reminded Shelley what they'd observed on the films. Ricky smacked her butt, and she left the safety of their circle. There were 36 women competitors and 53 male competitors. The instructor and one other were allowed on the sideline. Eric and Justin took their place there while Ricky paced nervously in front of the seats. He looked up to find Shelley's family. They appeared to be on the brink of heart failure. It was somewhat comical, and it made him smile. "It's just a tournament," he reminded himself. Jason watched as James and his passel of puppies found seats and leaned forward with interest as Shelley began to fight. Jerry was 2 seats away, and Wang walked up the aisle selling popcorn, keeping a very close eye on the large, blond man. The real James moved forward in his seat. He was actually surprised at how calm and in control the woman seemed to be. Her opponent was one of several that he'd sponsored. His blood pressure rose, though, as the smaller, older woman landed kick after kick with ease. She moved quickly, blocked well, and there was no question in anyone's mind who had won the match in the end. James slammed his cane onto the floor, cursed several times, and spoke on his phone. "I told that idiot of an instructor to make sure Cherie made her black belt, but I neglected to tell him to remember to teach her how to freaking fight," James mumbled. "Patience, old man," Tommy answered. "Besides, who cares if she wins? You know, and I know. She'll lose soon enough." "No, Keno is the one who will lose," James grumbled. "But I really wanted his little love queen humiliated in the ring, too." New scene. Sort of. We're going to go back and forth between little snippets of scenes. Shelley, Eric, and Justin approached Ricky, who picked Shelley up and swung her around. "Man, oh man, did you kick butt," he laughed. "You seem awfully relieved," she smiled at Ricky. "What, were you a little unsure of the outcome?" Let's not get cocky," Eric interrupted. "That's match number 1 of a possible 6. He nodded at his student. "I'm very pleased with your concentration. Keep it up." Shelley only nodded. As the march progressed, she did keep up her concentration. She seemed to have found some sort of confidence that even surprised Eric. The inner strength she developed over the past year was being manifested outwardly. Her next few opponents were surprised, unpleasantly surprised, by the power of her punches and the absolute fury of her kicks, sometimes delivered so blindingly fast that there was no time to react, and that was their demise. New scene. As each bout ended, James became increasingly agitated. "She's been through 4 battles, and each time she comes out without a scratch. Is there not one competent instructor out there who can train an athlete to defeat a little old lady?" He was furious, especially watching Eric as she fought. Sometimes he wouldn't even move. He'd simply stand with his arms folded across his chest and nod his approval for whatever his little puppet was doing at the time. I'm going to put that self-righteous chink down if it's the last thing I do, he promised himself. Tommy rose and made his way to the men's room. He smiled as the men who watched him so closely spoke into their mics and security officers scrambled. He knew they would only watch him for now. Later, as he left, they just might make a move to take him, and he'd welcome the opportunity. Maybe watching the fighting taking place in the arenas was serving to fire his appetite for violence, because suddenly he was looking forward to smashing somebody's face. He smiled in anticipation. New scene. The next several bouts were being fought by male competitors only so that they could catch up and bring both males and females to their semifinal rounds. Shelley finished her mid-tournament interviews with the media, careful not to make any predictions of the outcome of today's event. She breathed a sigh of relief as she finally left the cameras and rejoined her camp. Her family was there, and she found that comforting. Shelley sipped an energy drink and listened half-heartedly to the banter around her. This was wonderful, she thought. All the people she loved best in the world were right here under one roof. She smiled as she listened to her ex-husband actually converse with Eric, who was so friendly and easygoing. Ricky talked to Bree about her love of theater. Meg was showing off her baby to Angel. Brian asked Mark and Joey about how their training was coming along, and Justin teased them about what a mean teacher Eric can be. She sighed with pleasure and contentment. She'd achieved so much in 1 year, one hellish year at times, but it had all been worth it. She had a tremendous feeling of accomplishment, of satisfaction. She'd made her black belt and made it to the mart. Now, not only was she at the mart, but she was actually doing well. So well, in fact, that were she to be defeated right now, it wouldn't really bother her. After all, she had nothing to lose. Eric was right. This was just a tournament. Eric tugged on her braid. Are you ready? She smiled up at her teacher. Let's get this over with. Eric frowned. He wasn't sure he liked that response. What was going through that pretty head of hers now? She was keeping him on his toes. His answer came almost as soon as the semifinal round began. Shelley was being absolutely battered by her opponent. She seemed to have lost all fight. A spinning back kick caught her in the abdomen, and she was down again. Justin leaned toward Eric in a panic. What happened? Is she tired? You have to do something, Eric. When the round ended and she stumbled toward the corner, he did do something. He grabbed her by the shoulders and gave a small shake. She looked up into his face, surprised by the anger she saw. What are you doing, Shelley? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm trying. Are you? She shook her head. What do you mean? Why are you so mad? You once said you'd never be angry at me for losing a fight. Losing the fight? You're not losing the fight. What you're doing is much worse. You're throwing the fight. How can you say that? I'd never do that. Eric knew there was no time for a long discussion. He put his thoughts and words together quickly for the greatest impact. Well, I don't think you realize it, but that's what you're doing, Shelley. It's like you've given up. It's like you're satisfied with your performance and therefore don't care about the outcome. He shook his head. Listen to me carefully. I'm telling you that you will care. From the moment this bout is over, you'll begin to regret not giving it your all. You won't be able to say to your kids and your grandkids, I won the mart. What you'll tell them is how you could have won. You came close, but didn't win, and they'll ask you why, and all you'll be able to do is say that is the truth. And what is the truth? The truth is you were tired and content with going halfway. It was much easier to give up, and you took the easy way out. He paused and looked away a moment. Time was running out. Shelley, I don't want you to live the rest of your life with the regret and the remorse that you'll feel for letting this opportunity slip through your hands. I've never said this to you the whole year, the whole time you've been training, but not once, because winning is not always the important thing. But, sweetheart, you can win this thing. You really are capable of winning the whole darn thing. And what if I don't? She whispered. Do you remember what I told you in Daytona before your very first tournament? I said that as long as you do your best, I'd never be disappointed. Well, don't disappoint me today, baby. And don't disappoint your family and friends who've supported you in this endeavor all year because they love you and they want you to be happy. Go out there and give it all you've got. And then, even if you lose, you still win. He searched her face for an answer, but there was no time. She stood and went to center ring. James sat erect. Finally, the tournament was becoming interesting. For a moment, he thought Eric's little hellion wasn't going to answer the bell. He chuckled. I'd bow out now, too, if I were you. But then she did return. Good. It was time to see her get what she deserved. The moment the bell rang, Shelley's opponent came at her. Front kick, roundhouse kick, jumping side kick. Shelley was barely able to block them as she backed up and ended up against the ropes. James's eyes lit up. Oh, she's going down. Eric shook his head. He must not have gotten through, he thought. But the very next moment, he knew he had. As the woman spun around to deliver a crescent kick to Shelley's head, Shelley simply ducked and came up with a powerful punch to her ribs, and the woman staggered backward, obviously surprised by the force of the blow. A roar emerged from one section of the crowd, and James looked up to see Shelley's family, who had earlier become quiet with worry, now jumping up and down with renewed excitement and screaming encouragements. His frustration mounted. Shelley moved quickly to take advantage of her surprise attack. Punch, easy block, counter punch, side kick. The opponent was in pain. Things couldn't have worked out better had Eric and Shelley planned the strategy for this bout. The woman staggered. Instead of going for the head, Shelley kicked with all her might to the midsection, hoping that she'd knock the breath out of her opponent and keep her from rising. Eric stressed midsection over and over for a reason. Shelley danced about, waiting for the ref to check out her opponent. She wasn't getting up, at least not without help. And once Shelley's hand was raised in the air, she spun around to face Master Kino and jumped into his arms. New scene. For the umpteenth time that day, James slammed his cane on the floor. He grew tired of this nonsense. Let's do it, he spoke to his little brother. No talk, let's just get her now, before she wins, if we can just get her alone. Are you crazy? We'll never get away with something now. Remember, you only wanted to talk to her. It was you who said you wanted to toy with your prey. You can't get to her yet. It's not time, bro. Would you please be patient? We stick to our plan. We wait until after the championship round. I draw her protectors away, and you have your little conversation with her. Look, if it were up to me, I would have straight up ended her a long time ago. But not here. This was your plan, so we stick to it. Besides, I have to admit, I'm enjoying myself. James grumbled something back in response and drew a deep breath. He'd wanted so badly to see Kino lose the mart this time. He seethed with hatred. Yet Tommy was right. He needed to stick to the plan. Soon, he'd confront Shelley Adams and set her up for the night she'd never forget. He hadn't killed her yet because he wanted to have his way with Eric's woman. He wanted Eric to know how that feels. He wanted to describe in vivid detail everything he will do to her. How she responded, how she fought. It was going to be so good. New scene. Shelley and a few of her fellow competitors chatted excitedly. There had been a delay after the men's semifinal match. Shelley kept her eye on Eric and the other instructors who were talking over whatever the problem was with officials and television personnel. Shelley wondered what was happening and how it would affect her. Maybe her opponent was being disqualified. Yeah, right. Anyway, she knew Eric wouldn't want that. He wouldn't want to win by default. Whatever was going down, Eric didn't appear upset. Each instructor made their way back to their students and called their people together. Well, there's been a change in plans. All eyes waited patiently. The men's championship is going to go first. Why? Shelley and Ricky asked simultaneously. Eric smiled. Well, they didn't say, but I'm going to venture it's because you've become very popular, even more popular than they expected. Justin nodded thoughtfully. I'm sure it also has something to do with your instructor, he added. Eric shrugged. The man who trained Ricky Kino, let's see what his newest student can do. I'm sure that's part of it. Ricky nodded. So the TV suits are saving what everyone wants to see the most for last. It seems so. Anyway, Eric said, it's an honor, but it means you have to wait, which has its ups and downs. So stay loose, stay warm, and most of all, stay focused. Tommy laughed out loud at his brother when he realized they would have to sit through the men's championship. Not only would they have to wait longer to make their move, but James had to withstand the honor bestowed on Eric and Shelley to fight last. It took some fast talking to calm him down. It wasn't that much longer, and finally, it was Shelley's turn to fight. Tommy leaned forward, a scowl on his face, just as James would have done, and cursed with every gain Shelley made against her opponent. At the end of round 1, Shelley impatiently stood as Eric wiped the blood from her face. It had only been a glancing blow that had connected with her nose just right. He offered her some words of encouragement, some words of wisdom, patted her on the butt and sent her back to the scuffle, but she fared even worse in the second round. Back at his side, she was breathing hard. "Eric, do you think there's any chance?" she asked timidly. "Well, there's always a chance," he said matter-of-factly. Shelley frowned. She didn't care for his response. He smiled at her sour face. "Okay, I'll be completely honest with you. If they were to call the fight right now, not one of the judges would place you first. Fortunately, they won't call the fight. It doesn't work like that. So, babe, there's not enough time left for you to catch up in points. In order to win, you're going to have to put her down." "Down? As in knockout?" He nodded. "It's the only way." "How? How can I do that? I mean, she's good. I can't even get close to her. What am I doing wrong?" He pressed his lips together and shook his head. "Well, I wish I could tell you that you were doing something wrong, but you're not. You're fighting well, making good decisions. The two of you seem equally skilled. It seems to have come down to who spent the most time in the weight room, who's in better shape aerobically, who's the strongest, the quickest, whose instincts are better." He paused and thought. "Shelley, it's past being a competition of the instructors. We've both done our jobs. It's now completely between you and her. Which one will buckle when kicked in the abs? Which one of you moves quicker, punches harder? I have to say, it's a toss-up." "Can't you say anything that will help me?" "Sorry, babe, it's all up to you now. My only advice is to think back over this year and decide how much you want this. Now go." He shoved her back out into the ring. She couldn't believe it. She'd come all this way only to have him desert her in the end. She was on her own. Well, of course I am, she thought. How many times had he said he wished he could fight this battle for me? It's not as if she hadn't had to handle things on her own before. She wasn't going to go through the hell she'd gone through this entire year for nothing. She moved toward her opponent, barely seeing her. Everything came flooding back. The torturous training. She spun and kicked. Her opponent buckled at the force. New scene. They're on the move. Jerry was speaking softly into his mic. His eyes followed his subject as the man stood and began making his way slowly toward one of the exits, surrounded by his thugs. Jason watched closely from the observation booth. This man thought he'd simply appear briefly and disappear again without any consequences? They would allow him to think that, just for now. For now, they would only follow and keep track of him. Eric deserved the opportunity to deal personally with him, and they intended to give him the opportunity. "Jerry, don't let him out of your sight. Wang, report. I'm on aisle 20. They're passing me now. I'll ditch the vendor garb and catch up with Jerry." "Well, don't lose him," Jason warned. "I have all security personnel on standby, alert, keeping an eye on things, but I'll feel better when you're there with Jerry." "Are you saying you don't trust me?" Jerry laughed into his mic. Jason smiled. Trust? He trusted Jerry implicitly. Jerry was sharp, strong, incredibly brave. Nonetheless, he was young and sometimes saw the world through rose-colored glasses. Wang, on the other hand, was well-seasoned, intelligent to a fault, and like a brother to Jason. He loved both these men and would trust them with his own life in a second. "Trust you?" Jason answered. "Sure, I trust you. I trust you to get carried away and take James out somewhere never to be seen again." "Would I do that?" Jerry asked innocently. "Yo, Jason," Justin's voice interrupted. "Shelley here is about to win the whole freaking thing, and I really wish you and your little toy soldiers would shut up and let us concentrate." "Yes, sir," Jason answered. Ricky looked up toward the booth Jason occupied and smiled. Shelley saw a man in black standing in her doorway. Her kiap reverberated as she punched her opponent. She could see men in black all around her, laughing at her as she blocked and countered with an uppercut that sent her opponent flying. James tried not to pay attention to the crowd's cheers for his enemy as he made his way feebly upstairs. He ducked into one of the closed concession kitchens to repair the beard that had loosened during one of his outbursts. Soon, he'd stand face to face with Eric's little playmate. But no one would suspect him because, as far as they knew, Eric's men were following James Crane out of the dome. Eric watched with pride as Shelley's inner strength emerged and made itself evident to her opponent. She fought with the fierceness of a tiger, the skill of a true black belt, and the quickness of, he smiled, she'd like this, the quickness of Bruce Lee. Shelley, however, wasn't thinking about what Eric thought of her. She was fighting a great battle, an inner battle that was manifesting itself outwardly, much to the dismay of the young woman she fought. Each punch she threw, each kick delivered was payback for the atrocities she'd witnessed this year. She could see Eric bound and beaten, hanging in Brian's dojang. She saw Angel's eyes close as she hit the floor and felt the pain as Casey threw her into the mirror in New Orleans. With each memory, she delivered a devastating offensive that sent her opponent down again and again. The spectators were on their feet. It was as if everyone could feel the passion with which Shelley fought. They all knew that the underdog was about to take a great victory, and they loved it. The oldest person to ever compete in the mart was going to win. Wang made his way to one of the concession areas that had already closed and slipped quietly inside. Quickly, he unstrapped the tray of drinks and popcorn and set it down on the floor in the dark. That was when he noticed the shoes. His eyes moved up to find two steely blue eyes glaring at him. Meanwhile, Tommy sighed with disappointment. Several of Eric's men had followed him out of the dome, but not one had made a move to take him or question him in any way. He had to be content to lead them away from his brother without a confrontation. It took a moment for Wang's eyes to adjust to the dimly lit room. A tall man, half a beard dangling from his chin, smiled at him. Though it wasn't a friendly smile, the smile sent a chill down Wang's spine. Calmly, the man removed the hat from his head, revealing the startling blonde hair. And Wang knew this man. This was James Crane. Yet, hadn't James just left the dome? Damn. He'd pulled off one of the oldest tricks in the book. Shelley's opponent staggered. Shelley really didn't see her, though. She saw her home destroyed. She saw Mickey coming at her with scissors, and she saw the boulder. The boulder crashing down on top of her as she held fast to her son's arm. Time seemed to slow. She drew a deep breath. Her head turned first, followed by her torso, and finally her leg. She whipped herself around and connected with the woman's head. Wang never had a chance to react. James had no intentions of allowing this peon to ruin all his plans. He motioned to his man who stood just behind. Wang started to speak, to tell Jason what he was seeing, but never got the opportunity. He could only grunt as an arm closed around his throat, and he felt the prick of the knife at his back as it began its inward journey. Searing pain shot through him, but it wasn't as bad as the pain he felt for failing in his duty and letting down his friends, and especially the pain of never seeing his beautiful wife and daughter again. Slowly, he sank to his knees. On the mat, the woman fell to the mat, rolled over and tried to rise, but she couldn't tell which way is up. She withstood the count before she allowed herself the peace of unconsciousness. Wang reached out toward James in a last effort. He sank to the floor and drew in a ragged breath. Shelley, her family, her teacher, his son, their friends, and the rest of the crowd seemed to fly in the air as Shelley was declared the winner. She won. Could it possibly be true? Eric brushed the hair from her face and held her tight. Yes, it's true, Shelley. You've won the mart. So tell me, is it all you thought it would be? Oh, much more, she laughed. Well, babe, I am so proud of you. You did it. You fought so hard. So listen, you have to give some quick interviews, but as soon as you can, pull away from the reporters, get to the locker room, and get dressed quickly, as I have a surprise for you. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. And that is the end of chapter 29.